my pleasure to introduce you to my dear friend, Dr. Brad Glowaki. Brad is a champion in the world of health and wellness. He's a chiropractor with great context, great information. It's something that's going to motivate you and also help you to get healthy in your life. So let's dive in. Brad, very excited to have this conversation. Thanks for making the time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about your background. What's your academic or educational background, and what kind of activities are you involved today?
I'm a chiropractor. I have been for 20 years now, and went to undergrad, got a degree in Bachelor of Science and Biology, and then went to chiropractic school.
And your current activities, what kind of stuff are you doing?
In practice chiropractor, and I also teach other docs techniques, communication, in office, in the community, really just about health and wellness.
What would you say the culture of your practice is like? What kind of people come walking in?
It's a family practice, and it's a little bit of everything, pain, wellness-based, prevention, but predominantly it's a family practice.
And I know also you see a lot of professional athletes.
Yes.
How'd that come about?
Honestly, I think I just talked a lot about it and kind of created it where I just said, hey, we take care of athletes of all different levels, and I think that the best athlete at the time I was saying that was probably like a JV basketball player, and the truth is we just really stayed with that message that everybody's got to perform on some level, and we translated that into a corporate athlete, we translated that into an educational athlete, an industrial athlete, whatever profession we were speaking to. Police, fire would be an occupational athlete, and I just really wanted that athletic to performance conversation to happen.
And you're taking care of like Olympians and professional athletes, but you kind of adapt that, I guess, to all people, saying, hey, you have performance as a part of whatever you do.
Yeah, we've taken care of athletes that have won every major championship in professional sports with the exception of the NBA. So I have Stanley Cup winners, we've got Major League Baseball's, World Series champs, AL MVP, National League MVP, you name it, we've got athletes at the highest level with the exception of the NBA, and the truth is a lot of them, it's performance-based and prevention.
So when you were dealing with people like, you talk about first responders, I guess, police, firemen, et cetera, they come in. A lot of times these people have challenges with pain that's inhibiting their performance at their job. What type of approach do you take to working with them and helping them?
So as a chiropractor, working with people with pain, one of the best things we can do is honestly to eliminate the pain so that we can have other conversations about health. And I think one of the big secrets is if you're going to talk about something other than pain, you've got to address that first and foremost.
And what does that entail? So let's say that I'm a fireman, I come in, I say, hey, I'm trying to keep my job here, but I've got this pain in my back and I can't perform my normal duties as a result of it. What type of evaluation do you do? What's your advice to me, and what type of clinical approach would you take?
Good clinical approach would be a detailed consultation, examination depending on whatever part of the body that seems to be the source of the pain. And then I always like to take it a step beyond that. What else could be affected? What other areas of life can be affected? Limitations that they maybe didn't even equate to this particular problem. That really becomes my job. And as far as evaluations, whether it's x-rays or MRIs, as a chiropractor, those are tools that we use on a regular basis.
So with somebody that is challenged in that way, what are you finding as far as results for pain elimination? And I know that pain is just like the first step in a process of care. What kind of results do you get typically with people? In other words, they come in, they've got, let's talk about somebody who maybe who's had a nagging or an ongoing musculoskeletal pain, some spinal pain.
Yeah.
What kind of expectation is there for them where they'll start feeling relief?
Time is really the biggest issue when it comes to feeling relief, and it's different for everybody. So I think one of the most important things as their chiropractor is just to look at this and say, look, healing takes time. It is different for everybody. There's things that they can do within their control that will speed it up. Then there's things that we can do, but honestly, it just takes time. And that sometimes is the most frustrating portion when people are in excruciating pain is when is it going to be gone? And quite honestly, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, and once it is gone, do you make typically ongoing recommendations for care?
I'll always make ongoing recommendations beyond the pain. I think it's important if somebody's had excruciating pain and they've suffered and they don't want to go back there, I feel it's my moral obligation to say, here's what you can do to keep this from returning. It's up to them to decide, but I want to honor their knowledge and wisdom and say, these are the best things that you can do.
Because I'd imagine that there's, whatever is causing their pain in the first place is usually still present in their life. life, like physical demands.
Yeah.
That's why you call them all athletes. They're straining their bodies in certain ways, or maybe lifestyle, what they're eating, stress because of what's going on in their life, psychological stress, what have you. But the ongoing care helps to prevent pain from returning, or how do you normally position that with a patient?
Well, the reason I like talking about this in reference to an athlete or for performance is most people have what we call repetitive causation. There's a thing that they do repetitively that inevitably has created this situation. And quite honestly, in the future, we're going to see it again if we don't realize that these things are going on. So there's a couple approaches. One is prevention, and the other is ongoing care to basically mitigate some of these problems.
Brad, what makes chiropractic different? What's unique about it?
What's unique about chiropractic is basically it's a drugless profession, and that premise in and of itself is unique because there is no option for synthetic medications, pills, the heavy narcotics that we see that have plagued so many people with the opioid epidemic and oxy. It's not even on the table. Right. So what's really exciting as a chiropractor is it's always looking for a natural solution, and quite honestly, it's an inside-out approach. So that means that we're always looking for ways to maximize the body's design, maximize what's from the inside, and not looking externally first. That might be a last resort. Surgery would be a last resort. Right. And unfortunately, we see a lot of people where the system's a bit flipped, where we have people coming in who've already done the extreme things, and they show up to us as a last resort. And I think it should be reversed. It's very conservative. It's non-drug based. Surgery is something we always want to put way into the future, if at all. And what's really cool is that the premise is your body can heal itself.
So it's interesting because you're right. You're saying, hey, this is, first of all, it's not expensive.
Right.
Secondly, it's very conservative. But I know that people sometimes have a failed spinal surgery, and now they come in and say, hey, can you help me because my surgery failed, which is really the wrong orientation.
It is. It's unfortunate, but they kind of get so desperate. And I understand it. When the pain is excruciating and you want an answer, oftentimes you make wrong decisions, rushed decisions. Logic goes out the window when the emotions are high. And quite honestly, when people are in excruciating pain and it's been an extended period of time, or it's an acute situation, it comes on quickly, they make fast decisions, and they're not always the best decisions for their health.
Now, I know you'll go into corporations and actually talk to employees and talk to them about chiropractic and about their health and maybe even some things that they can do to preserve their health. What are those conversations like when you walk into those environments?
It's funny because when we go into a corporate environment, the context is always king. So context over content. And when we're there, a lot of times I know their interest in corporate can be, not always, but it can be, how do we get more out of the employees? How do we eliminate sick days, stressed out days? And there's a myriad of statistics on those topics. So we just kind of convert it into a positive conversation. Say, look, the definition of energy is the ability to do work. Right. So if we can work with your employees and get the energy levels up and they're more productive, would that be of interest in you? And then the truth is the content within that conversation, quite honestly, talks about eliminating things that we know are going to lead to sick days, absenteeism, very relevant, but at the same time, kind of on a lower level of the scale of what true health is.
Are you seeing that when people are under care, that they start out with drugs or medications, but they're able to get themselves off the medication because of the services you provide?
Absolutely, and that's usually one of the first things that we look to do is eliminate the pain, quite honestly, because there's a bigger conversation in health. But we can't do that if we don't address it. And it's a bit of a paradox. We've got to address pain to get it off the table and then really talk about the things like prevention and maintenance that will be really helpful in the future so they don't wind back on those meds. But step one is limiting or eliminating the use of those things. And quite honestly, we know it saves lives. It really does. There's such an addiction and there's such a correlation to pain meds and even heavier drugs like heroin. It's really neat to open people's eyes to the possibility of feeling good without medication.
Yeah, because I guess in one sense it's trading one problem for another. You'd say, okay, I got pain, so I use these drugs. Some of them are pretty toxic drugs to get rid of the problem of pain, or at least the experience of pain. And then now there's all these other problems that can emerge. But at the same time, people get kind of attached to the medication. Yeah. So are there any words that you use or conversations that you have to try to reframe the use of drugs, with the problems that they're facing?
I love to ask people, once they start taking these medications, what's the ending date? What day are you going to stop? And quite honestly, it's so fuzzy, they don't know. And it really kind of opens their eyes to the fact that I just thought I'd be on these for a while or indefinitely or maybe forever. And it kind of scares them a little bit that they don't have an answer. And that's really step one is let's get some targets and goals that we can hit. And one of them being, let's get away from these pills and drugs, because if they're not clear on it, we can't hit a fuzzy target. Let's set some clear definitions of when you want to be off these things, and let me see if I can help you in that process. But asking some really good questions around that really can provide clarity for the patient. And quite honestly, they don't usually come to these conclusions themselves. And rather than reducing dose, what we notice, and this is not the fault of their MD, but what we notice is that they actually are increasing dosages over time, so it has the same effectiveness.
Yeah, because over time the body starts to be as receptive to the effect, so they have to increase the dose to get this the same effect.
Absolutely.
And that's where problems really can start to occur.
Big problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there times where people come in where they are saying, I've got this this problem in my neck or low back or wherever the pain might be, and that's really the desire, that's the intent. I want, can we get this handled? But they start to see that maybe the pain is influenced and it's better, but they see other aspects of their health start to change that they weren't expecting.
Absolutely. And what's really cool about being a chiropractor is when we start to look at the root cause of the problem, so many other things are tied into that. So it could be whole systems of the body, organs of the body. And when I say systems, it could be things like digestive system. It could be their immune system, circulation system. So there's whole systems of the body. And one of the coolest things is, as a chiropractor, we always say we give life and we save life, because quite honestly, one of the systems that often gets effective is the reproductive system. And the patients will tell us, the only variable that changed is I started seeing my chiropractor and now I'm pregnant. And I just have to remind the husbands I had nothing to do with it. Right. Was not me. It's just the way the body works when it's working correctly.
Yeah, I could see the wife coming and saying, Dr. Glowaki, you got me pregnant.
Yes, this has happened on more than one occasion. Yeah. A little hot under the collar. And when it happened with an NHL couple, that wasn't so fun because he was about 6'3", and it was like real quick talking and some backpedaling. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you set that expectation for patients saying, when you're here, there's going to be other aspects of your health that are going to be impacted? Or do you wait and see if it happens kind of in hindsight?
I don't like to lead the witness. I don't like to tell them what's going to happen, but I want to open, honestly, the emotional component to the physical component of their health to possibility. And there is one drug and one supplement we give all of our patients, and that's hopium. Yeah, we want to give them hope because, quite honestly, what I see a lot in a traditional healthcare approach is it can be fear-based. It can be worst-case scenario first, and then we get to the good stuff later. And quite honestly, being a chiropractor, it's a bit counterintuitive, and it is not so mainstream. And I like that fact because what I see mainstream oftentimes is not the best solutions, and it's not filled with hope. And I think that's the first process in healing is just open people up to possibilities, if in fact it's true, and if it's not, that's my job too. But quite honestly, people just really have this fear-driven approach, and that's also why the rash decisions and the quick, mindset and choices for things like surgery, that with a logical discussed conversation and a slow and easy consult, a lot of these things, maybe they would think twice about it, but it's always the patient's choice.
Now that you mentioned other providers, are you sometimes co-managing with either, a medical doctor or maybe, an acupuncturist, naturopath, other providers that people are sometimes pursuing multiple paths at once? And what's that like, for you to have to kind of coordinate care?
I co-manage every week. And the truth is, anybody who's willing to work with me, I'm wide open to the possibility. And that's not unique. I mean, that's, I think, what a lot of good doctors will do in every field. And the truth is, you got to just leave your ego at the door. The conversation should be about the patient. And it becomes my job to say what I'm not good at, what I can't do, what I don't know, and also offer strong opinions where I say, we've got a better way to do this. And quite honestly, chiropractic has a better way on a lot of things that I don't see traditional healthcare really making any changes, and they failed the patient, quite honestly. So chiropractic really has a strong place at the table when it comes to a holistic approach to healthcare.
Is it very typical for patients who are showing up in pain that they're going to get relief?
Almost always.
Almost always.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the rarity when they don't. Yep.
And that's the exception. And when you have somebody who's not responding, what's the next move typically?
We check and recheck. And a lot of times I think if we set proper goals in the beginning, we can see if they're making variations or moderate improvements. And quite honestly, patients' identification of what's better really changes depending on their state. So sometimes they'll say, hey, I'm not all the way better. I thought I would be better at this point. And then we say, well, what medical school did you go to? Or what is this professional opinion based on? And the truth is they need it better because it's prom. They need it better because they have a golf tournament. And so the timelines are really, it can be a struggle with the patient and just saying, hey, healing takes time and everybody's different. And the longer you've had it, the longer it's going to take, which is inevitably a good reason, I think, for people to get to see a chiropractor on a prevention basis, not just pain-based, because then the work becomes a whole lot less.
I know some chiropractors stay on the spine. Some will work on the spine and also, extremities. So somebody comes in and they've got, ankle pain, knee pain, wrist pain, what have you. Do you do that kind of extremity work in your practice also?
We do, and I think sometimes people get a little bit confused because a chiropractor really is trained on any joint in the body. The central focus is the central nervous system, but quite honestly, the biggest results are the ones that are on the spine, and quite often that's how we kind of get painted as a profession, is just low back or neck pain. And I get it because the results are amazing. But the true answer is it's any joint in the body, which would include extremities. It would include things like ankles, wrist problems, people with carpal tunnel. There's a variation of things that can be resulted when you go off the spine.
And my experience is that many times those extremity issues are related to spinal problems.
Absolutely.
A lot of times people say, your shoulder hurts, so they just go right to the shoulder. But, many times that problem's in the neck.
Yeah, the central nervous system is really the key to it. And we start with the spine and we'll go out from there. And the least we can do with the extremities, I think the better, because the reality is a lot of times if someone has the appearance of a short leg, it doesn't mean you need to put something in their shoe. It means it's an imbalance in the spine and the pelvis, which would give a distortion in the body. So the reality is spine first is really what most chiropractors do.
This might sound like a leading question or a softball question, but I really want people to understand this. Why does chiropractic work so effectively?
Chiropractic is amazing. And the reason it works so effectively is your body has this energy and this ability to heal itself. And it can show up in some really extreme situations, just to make this tangible for people, that if they were ever in a life-threatening situation or they ever had something where they needed to dig a little deeper and they had more strength than they realized or more endurance, or they were able to stay up all night for some crazy circumstance, that power is always in people. It's always there. And what we do as chiropractors is we release that ability to be more powerful from the inside out. It's what we call the life force. Your life force, your innate intelligence is always there. And we just turn that dimmer up much brighter and brighter in our patients because it's an inside out approach. So we don't dumb it down. We don't put medications in to hope it does good things. It's really this inside out approach. And I love that idea that, like, if it was a life-threatening situation, we have no doubt a mother has run over in the past in previous scenarios and lifted a car off of a child and, like, how did she do it? She always had it. The truth is it was always there, and what we do is we maximize potential as chiropractors. And it's way more than pain. We do great with pain, but it's way more than pain. It's really this life force that's within them, and what we do is we just turn that up. We just increase the vibrational frequency.
So now you've got me excited about chiropractic and what chiropractors can do and why it works, et cetera. Now I got to go find one.
Right.
And that's never an easy thing. People many times ask me, say, hey, I'm looking for a chiropractor in such and such a place, or, should I just go to one? Or it's kind of tough because, not all of them practice the same. There's different orientations. So let's say that, well, I like him. I like what he's talking about. How would I go online, or what resources could I go to find what might be, quote unquote, a good chiropractor?
It's real easy. You just fly to LA. There's a small beach town called Seal Beach, and I'll be your chiropractor. Now, the truth is we're almost at maximum capacity in our office, and that's why I started training other chiropractors, because I know the best results under chiropractic care are not short-term visits. And unfortunately, chiropractic's been so good at alleviating pain. That's quite honestly what people think that we do and that's it. And the reality is beyond the pain is really the best form of chiropractic care. So I would say a good chiropractor will put people on a care plan. It's a timeline beyond the pain. Instead of saying, how do you feel now? What's different? What's better? Cool, come back when it hurts. Well, if you don't want to be in pain, then I would suggest you find a chiropractor that will put you on a plan that part of it is prevention of pain. And I would rather not have pain as a trigger to go see someone. So we've got a website. It's called wellnesschampions.org. And what it is chiropractors that not only speak in their community, go and do corporate lectures, but also are accepting patients under this same paradigm of prevention and performance. And I think that's so key because that parallels people in everyday lives. So yes, we work with elite athletes, but what I like to do is take those lessons and then apply that to all patients. So everybody's got to perform on a major basis. And if it's a mother, that's maybe one of the most important jobs in the world, because if she's not able to fulfill her performance or her job duties, then there's always 2 or 3 other children affected. And the reality is when we can have people perform at a higher basis, they're living at a higher level. So I love the chiropractors that put people on plans, because within it, there is this prevention model. There's this higher level of performance and really just turning up that vibrational frequency. So wellnesschampions.org is a site that I can vouch for because the doctors are trained and they do the same techniques that I do in LA, but they do it all over the world.
That's great. Well, Brad, I really appreciate you coming and sharing not only your knowledge, but enthusiasm for chiropractic with this audience.
Thank you very much.
We need more Brad Glowakis in the world. What a great human being, and what a great vision he has for you and for people to live a healthier life. So thanks for joining me for that interview.